The old house smelled of lavender and lies. Elara breathed it in, a cloying sweetness that failed to mask the undertone of dust and decay. It was the scent of her childhood, the scent of her mother. Eleanor sat propped against a mountain of embroidered pillows on the chaise lounge, her body a delicate bird-like frame lost in a cascade of cashmere. Only her eyes, sharp and dark as chips of obsidian, held any of their old formidable power. "More tea, dear?" Eleanor's voice was a silken thread woven with a lifetime of practiced frailty. "No, thank you, Mother." Elara placed her own untouched cup on the polished mahogany table between them. The porcelain made a quiet, definitive click. It was the sound of a line being drawn. For 40 years, Elara had orbited this woman, a dutiful moon to a demanding planet. She had tended to the house, to her mother's whims, to the carefully curated shrine of her father's memory. Captain Thomas Albright, the hero, lost at sea. A tragedy that had defined their lives, shackling Elara to her grieving mother with chains of pity and obligation. Today, she had come to break them. "I was in the attic," Elara began, her voice level, betraying none of the tremor in her hands, "looking for the old photo albums." Eleanor's smile was a pale, brittle thing. "So many memories up there. Mostly dust now, I'm afraid. Just like me." Elara ignored the bait. "I found a box, a small tin box tucked under a loose floorboard." She watched her mother's face. A flicker, so small it might have been a trick of the dim afternoon light filtering through the heavy velvet curtains. But it was there. "Old keepsakes, I imagine," Eleanor said, her hand fluttering to the lace at her throat. "Your father had so many little treasures." "There were letters inside," Elara said, her gaze unwavering. "Not from him, to him." She let the words hang in the stagnant air, thick as the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams. The silence that followed was a physical presence. The grandfather clock in the hall seemed to hold its breath. Eleanor's face became a perfect porcelain mask of confusion. It was a masterful performance, one Elara had seen 1,000 times in response to any unpleasantness. I don't recall," Eleanor murmured. "Your father had many acquaintances from the war." "They were dated a year after his ship went down, Mother." The mask cracked. A hairline fracture of fury appeared between her brows. "That's impossible. You must have misread." Elara reached into her handbag and placed a small, tarnished silver locket on the table next to the teacup. It wasn't the one Eleanor had given her, the one with the stoic, uniformed photo of her father inside. This one was different, heavier. "She sent this, too," Elara said softly. It was in the box. With a steady hand, she opened it. On one side was a different picture of her father, younger, smiling with an unguarded joy she had never seen. On the other was a woman with dark, laughing eyes, and nestled between them, a tiny, cherubic baby. Eleanor stared at the locket as if it were a serpent. The carefully constructed world of genteel grief and heroic sacrifice was crumbling around her, and for the first time, Elara could see the raw, desperate architect beneath the ruins. "He was a good man," Eleanor whispered, the words thin and sharp as splintered glass. "He was a hero. He loved us." "He loved you," corrected, the word a poison dart. "He didn't know me, because he wasn't here. He wasn't lost at sea. He just left." The reckoning had begun, not with a shout, but with the quiet, devastating weight of the truth. Elara felt a strange, cold calm settle over her. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about excavation, about digging through 40 years of emotional rubble to find something real.
Even if that something was a void. He was weak, Eleanor spat, the silken thread of her voice replaced by steel wire. He wanted to run away from his responsibilities, from you. I gave you a better story, a better father. You gave me a ghost, Elara said, her voice dropping to a whisper. You made me spend my life mourning a man who was alive, loving a myth. You built my entire life on a lie, and you made me its caretaker. I did it for you, Eleanor's voice rose, cracking with a lifetime of repressed fury. So you wouldn't know you were abandoned, so you would be the daughter of a hero, not the cast-off child of a coward. I sacrificed everything. I gave up my own life to maintain his honor, to give you a name to be proud of. The word sacrifice hung in the air, obscene and twisted. Elara saw it then, the deep, unsettling truth of her heart. It wasn't about protecting Elara, it was about control. About Eleanor writing a narrative where she was the tragic, noble widow, not the spurned wife. Elara hadn't been a daughter to be loved, but a prop to be used in her long, lonely play. Your life? Elara asked. A hollow laugh escaped her lips. What about mine? The man I never dated because I couldn't bear to leave you alone. The career I gave up to move back here after my degree. The friends who drifted away because my life was here, in this mausoleum, polishing the tombstone of a man who was probably sipping wine on the French Riviera. She stood up, the movement feeling slow, heavy, as if she were wading through water. She looked at the shrunken figure on the chaise lounge, no longer a formidable planet, but a collapsing star. There was no victory in this, no satisfaction. Just a vast, barren emptiness where a foundation should have been. She had come for a reckoning, expecting a fight, a denial, perhaps even tears of remorse. What she got was far more disturbing. The unmasking of a love so possessive and selfish it had preferred a beautiful lie to an ugly truth, and had consumed a daughter's life as fuel to keep it burning. Elara walked to the door, leaving the locket on the table, a tiny silver bomb that had finally detonated. Elara, wait, Eleanor called, her voice suddenly small, a child's plea. Where are you going? Elara paused, her hand on the ornate brass knob. She didn't turn around. I don't know, she said, and the words were honest for the first time in her life. But for the first time, it feels like my decision to make. She stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind her. The click of the latch was soft, but in the suffocating silence of the house, it sounded as loud and final as a gunshot. She was leaving the ghost of her father behind, but more than that, she was leaving the ghost of the girl she had been, the one who tended the shrine, the one who had believed in the lavender and the lies. The emptiness ahead was terrifying, but it was real, and that, she thought, was a start.